Additionally, in your email, you may have received a survey. If you have not submitted that survey already, please make sure to fill that out and submit it as soon as possible. We're trying to get some more information on the type of evidence-based performance measures that we have and evidence-based data that we are gathering at each agency. That's something that our department has directed us to do. So any feedback from your agency is very appreciated. You may have also been contacted by your contract monitor about the certification regarding lobbying. If you could double check your document submission tracker through your dashboard and make sure that all of your documents have been uploaded and submitted, we would very much appreciate that. We also have received about half of our contracts from the attorney for your DHS contracts. So if you have not received your contract yet, they are coming very quickly. If you have received your contract, you will, once signed, you'll upload that and your HIPAA agreement to your dashboard to the lines that say contract and HIPAA agreement. Oh, and I see a question in the chat. So for the person who asked about not seeing ARPA on their Smartsheet dashboard, I will write your question and your name down, and I will have your monitor reach out to you, and we can provide one-on-one technical assistance. Sometimes it's hidden, and we have to do a search or clear out cookies to find it, but we've figured out ways around that to troubleshoot it and figure out why you're not receiving access, but we'll reach out to you today. Rajan, are you ready to go? The survey would have been mailed to your executive director, I believe. Oh, excuse me, the performance POC. I was looking over at Natalie just to double check. So the survey would have been sent to your performance POC. It says evidence-based interventions. No. Do you have any other questions about your document submission tracker or anything that is still pending with DHS?
Okay, I'm ready, Natalie and Katie.
Okay, we had one question from Nadia to confirm that evidence-based interventions should only be submitted for DHS contracts, not Metro Health contracts. That is correct. As of right now, DHS is the only one asking about that. Okay, Rashonda, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, Rashonda, we can see it.
Okay. All right. Again, I'm Rashonda Anderson, Fiscal Analyst for DHS, and I'll be giving this presentation today on advanced payment request instructions for the ARPA DAs, the American Rescue Plan Act Delegate Agencies, again with DHS, Department of Human Services fiscal team. I think maybe most of you all were in attendance yesterday, so I will go a little quicker on the advanced payment request and a lot of the demonstration. I will do that with the second presentation when we get into submitting the quarterly review invoices. Okay. All right, so for this agenda, I'm going to give an introduction, definitions, process overview, and remind you where the DHS Partner Resource webpage is, speak about Smartsheet access, and then show you how to complete the advanced payment request template and also the projections template. And then we'll provide timeline visuals for you, let you know about our questions tab, speak about the, also do an advanced payment request demonstration, and then remind you of some items, and then also speak about uploading and submitting into Smartsheet documents, your documents into Smartsheet, and that demonstration I'll push to the second presentation. And then any comments or questions regarding this this presentation. Okay, so again, the purpose of this presentation is to explain the process for submitting your advanced payment request and to serve our current purpose. And for this presentation, the advanced payment request will be treated as an invoice to facilitate payments to the delegate agencies. Detailed instructions will be given, visual examples will be provided, and again, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions that will subsequently be compiled into an FAQ. So again, please hold all questions until the end of this training. And as Katie mentioned, the presentation will be recorded and available for future use. So the definitions, the advanced payment request template, this is the template that the agencies will submit for advanced payment requests to facilitate their payments. The projections template, this is a spreadsheet that the agencies will use to provide COSA, the City of San Antonio, a schedule of the amount they expect to spend during the contract period. And then Smartsheet is a software for collaboration and work management, and the agencies will use this software to submit required documents to COSA. It is important that the advanced payment request and projections templates are completed properly to avoid rejections and delays with future advanced payments. It is equally important to submit all documents to COSA using Smartsheet. So for the process overview, for this specific process, agencies will access all templates and forms through the COSA website. And the agency will complete the advanced payment request and projections templates, and then the agency will upload the advanced payment requests and projections and supporting documents to Smartsheet. Okay, this is where I can show you, remind you where the DHS Partner Resource webpage is. Once you get into sanantonio.gov and search on human services, you can click the about and then go to resources for partners and agencies. And if you click on workshops, that's where you'll find the presentations and also information on how to access Smartsheet. Also, if you scroll further down on the workshops tab, you'll see specifically physical presentations that are specific to ARPA agencies. Okay, now the Smartsheet access, once you've logged in, you'll see the folder on the left panel. You click that folder and then it'll bring you to where you'll see the different dashboards, the ARPA Performance, the ARPA Finance, and the ARPA Executive. And then once you choose your dashboard, only users of the dashboard that they choose will be able to edit and add attachments. And for this presentation, the finance dashboard, the users of the finance dashboard are the only ones who can submit advanced payment requests, projections, budget revisions, and amendment documents. Everyone else would just have view-only access. Now, how to complete the advanced payment request template. First, you want to access it, and again, you'll go to the partners and resource page, And instead of clicking on workshops where you would find the presentations, you click on the next tab where it says contract forms, and you'd scroll down to the section where it says forms for ARPA contracts only. And that's where the ARPA specific forms would be listed. And then quickly before we go into step 2, just as a reminder, I know some of the agencies are still going through the budget review process. And one of the things you want to keep in mind is we need to get your vendor ID set up in the system before you can start receiving payments. And this is the information to help you to be able to do that. There's the address and the email address and phone number to vendor support, which is where you would send that information. Okay, when you access the form, this is what the entire form looks like for the advance payment request. And we're going to go through each part. So the third step, where it says contracts on the form, this will auto-populate, and it auto-populates based off of step 4, where it says agency and program. You would click the down drop menu and choose your agency and program, and based on what you choose, it will auto-populate the field to show if you are a immigration ARPA delegate agency or a non-immigration ARPA delegate agency. And in this example is a non-immigration because it just says ARPA delegate agency. And then the 5th step is where you would enter your complete address. And if you find that your address has changed from what you initially submitted to COSA, then contact your contract monitor immediately, and they will put you in touch with the vendor maintenance support. And this will start the process that will ensure your address is updated in the Smartsheet master data file and also in the COSA accounting system. And the 6th step, the invoice date and invoice number fields, they will auto-populate. We try to make the form as automated as possible. And then step 7, for the period, you would select the quarterly period that you are submitting for from the drop-down menu as shown in the screenshot on the slide. Okay, and then step 8, the month and purchase order number, they will auto-populate. For now, you might notice that the purchase order number will be blank, and that is okay. Things are still getting set up, but eventually that number will auto-populate for you. And step 9, everything in this section, the ARPA delegate agency and advanced payment request sections, that will all auto-populate. And then step 10, this last section, the agency attestation, we need to have your signature, the date, and your title entered here, and we will accept both digital and hard signatures. Now this slide is basically the whole advanced payment request template with little talking boxes, text boxes that again give you the instructions on what we just went over for each section. And you'll find this when you open the file for the advanced payment request template. There's an instructions tab right next to the template tab that you'll be filling out. In case you forget anything, this instructions tab will be there, and it lets you know which areas auto-populate and which areas you need to enter data. Now we'll talk about how to complete the projection spreadsheet. And the purpose of the ARPA projections tab on the ARPA DA advanced payment request template file is for you to list the projected amount of funds you expect to spend over the next 2 years. The spreadsheet should be updated each time that an advanced payment request is submitted. And as each month ends, you'll need to update the monthly columns with the actual amount spent for the prior months that have passed, where you had projections listed previously. Once the actuals come in, we need you to update that area. And the columns for the actual amounts are formulated to turn blue at the end of each month, so that way you'll be reminded and recognize where to put the actual numbers on the spreadsheet. So when you open the spreadsheet, when you click to that tab, this is what it looks like. And again, there are those blue columns. And so November and December has passed, and that's why they're blue. And when you open it up today, all of the months that have passed up through February should be blue for you to put in actual numbers. Okay, now breaking that spreadsheet down, the first section, moving left to right, the second column is where you would enter in your budget approved, COSA approved budget for each category. And as you can see on the screenshot, the categories, personnel, contractual services, that's all listed in column A. You would put the dollar amounts in column B under the COSA approved budget section. And then moving further over to the right, this is set up for the entire 2 years of the contract. So from Q1 FY23 through Q9, those are all displayed from column C through column AC. And this is where you would enter in your projections and your actuals. So as seen in the tab, the blue columns is where you would put your actual amount spent. And then the columns following that are not shaded is where you would put your projected numbers. And in this example, continuing to move to the right, January 2023 and through March 2023, those columns are following the actual column that's blue. And so those columns for this example is where you would enter projected data, and all the blue columns to the left of it is where you would put your actual spent. And then the last column, the variance explanations, columns AD through AG. Like I said, we automated the sheet as much as possible, so it does calculate. And if there are any variances between what you projected and what your budget, approved budget is, we ask that you put an explanation or any justification in the variance explanation section. And again, just as the other one, when you click on the tab for the projections, there's also an instructions tab right next to it in case you forget what goes into the different fields, and they're talking text boxes next to each field to remind you of what data needs to go in there. And this is the timeline. There are two different timelines. This one is for immigration delegate agencies, and this next one is for non-immigration delegate agencies. And if you notice the first column, the due dates, it's always going to be the 20th of the month, and the month is always going to be the first month of that quarter. So as you can see on both timesheets, the due dates is the 20th of the first month of the quarter. The second column is the quarter. The third column shows you the period that's being covered in that quarter. And then the fourth column shows you the submission type, if you're submitting an advance payment request or a quarterly review. And then the last column shows you the percentage of the award that you would be getting each quarter that you submit. And so going through the immigration timeline, you notice on the 20th of February is when you should have submitted your first quarter advance payment request, and your first quarter for the immigration started in November 2022 through January 2023. And also your second quarter started in February, from February through April. That would have been your second quarter advance payment. And then also on the 20th, you would, at this point, you should have had actuals amount spent for the first quarter, which covered the period November through January. And so this is the pattern where you submit your advance payment request for the quarter, and then you also submit your quarterly review invoice for the previous quarter at the same time. And so for the immigration delegate agencies, you need to submit your advance payment request for Q1 and Q2, as I have highlighted here in yellow, That should have been submitted on the 20th of February because February is the first month of the second quarter. And then also, since the first quarter will have passed, you would be should have submitted your quarterly review invoice for the first quarter as well. And just to show you how the pattern follows the same, if you skip down to the fifth quarter, you see that everything is due on November 20th because November is the first month in the fifth quarter, which covers the period of November through January. That's when you would submit your advance payment request. But also on the 20th, you would be submitting your quarterly review invoice for the prior quarter, quarter four, which covered period August through October. So as you follow along the schedule timeline, that's pretty much the pattern. And it's the same thing for the non-immigration delegate agencies. The only difference being the quarters are different because for non-immigration, your quarter started last month in March, and it covers, your first quarter covers the period of March through May. And so your advance payment request should have been submitted on March 20th. And then in following the same pattern as seen in the previous timeline, for the second quarter, your second quarter will start June and cover the period June through August. So for that second quarter advance payment request, since June is the first month of that quarter, then June 20th is the due date for that advance payment request. And then at the same time, the prior quarter, quarter one, which had passed, covering the period of March through May, that's when you would submit your quarterly review invoice, also on the 20th. And again, the pattern just continues the same for the third quarter, covering period September through November, September being the first month of that quarter, third quarter. The 20th of September is when everything would be due, which is your advance payment request for the third quarter, and also your prior quarter's quarterly review invoice, which would be quarter two, covering the period of June through August. And so that's how that pattern continues for the timeline. Now the questions tab, there's also going to be a questions tab on the advance payment request file. You have the advance payment request template, the projections template, a tab for that, and then the last tab would be the questions tab. This is where we would like for you to enter any questions you have regarding the form or the process as you're going through it. And we'll also we'll address the questions and then put together an FAQ that will either be on that tab or the website for your future reference. This is an example of what that question tab looks like when you click on it. And these are just some sample questions showing you put the category if you're talking about something specific like projections, or if you have a question regarding the process, we can categorize that, and then whatever your question is. And then if you have comments or suggestions, we have space for you to submit that as well. Okay, now do a demonstration on the advance payment request. For this, log into the Smart Sheet. Okay, and when you log into Smart Sheet, just like the screenshot we saw, if you look to the left panel, you'll see your folder. Click on your folder. You're going to go to your ARPA contracts, and then you want to go to the dashboard area. And then from here, For our example, we're using the finance dashboard. When you click that, this is what you'll see. You want to scroll down the dashboard to the area of invoice and budget revisions. And this is the area where you would be submitting your advance payment request, because as I mentioned earlier, we're using the invoice as the advance payment request. Okay, so once you're in here, this is where you would submit your form. And I will finish this part of the demonstration when we get to the second presentation when we're submitting the quarterly invoice review. But let me backtrack and go to the COSA website, because you need to get the form was the first step in submitting the advance payment request, is getting the template. So I'm going to take you to the bookmark for partners and agency resources. And remember, there's the workshop tab, and this is where you find all the presentations, and the ARPA ones in particular are under the fiscal presentation. But we are going to go to the contracts and forms, down to the forms for ARPA contracts only, and we're going to fill out the advanced payment request template. And when you open that, you'll need to go ahead and download the file so you can edit and enter in your information and save it, and then you'll upload it later into Smartsheet. Okay. So remember when I mentioned that this area for contract would auto-populate, there's a formula in there to do that. So it auto-populates based off of the agency and program that you choose. And so if you are an immigration agency and you choose your name and program, then your contract will also represent that you're an immigration agency. Then you fill out your address. The date will auto-populate. The invoice will as well. And when you choose the period, remember for the immigration delegate agencies, your first quarter started in November of 2022. So when you go to the drop down and scroll up to the first quarter, we've automated it so it will represent the months for your first quarter, which is November through January. And then your invoice name will show up, and again the purchase order will auto-populate, but for now it's showing 0. And also to show demonstrate the automation, if you were non-immigration ARPA delegate agency, like this one, you notice the contract changes from ARPA immigration to ARPA delegate agency to represent you're a non-immigration ARPA delegate agency. And again, you fill out your address and everything else would auto-populate, but you would still need to choose your period from the drop down. This was still left on quarter 1. And as you can see, it's automated so that a non-immigration agency, your first quarter would show up as starting in March through May. And then as you continue down, these were the areas that auto-populate with your total award amount, and that you'll be receiving 12.5% for this first quarter, since that's what we chose for the period. And then your advanced payment request, it calculates out what the 12.5% is of your total award. And then this is the agency attestation, where we need your signature and date and your title here. Afterwards, this area is for COSA only, and this is where if there are any adjustments, if for whatever reason there needs to be an increase to this advance payment request for this quarter or a decrease for whatever reason. and then we sign as well. And then moving on, here's the instructions tab, as I showed in the presentation, where as you're filling out the advance payment request, if there's anything you forget, there's the instructions tab to help guide you with that. And then when you've completed the advance payment request, then here's the ARPA projections tab, as seen in the presentation. And again, to show you the automation, this tab is linked to the advance payment request tab, and so it still pulls in the contract name, and we're right now working with the Non-Immigration Agency. There's the program name, and as you can see here for the first quarter, it's March through May, and that's because it's a non-immigration agency. But if we were to go back to the advance payment request and choose an agency that is an immigration agency, then it changes the contract name that flows over to the ARPA projections page, the contract name that it's an immigration delegate agency. And as you can see, for the immigration, their quarter one started November. And so you see the first quarter is covers the period November through January. Those months are blue because they've passed. So when you fill out this form, you should have actual spend amounts that you can enter in. And again, since we're all the way in April now, March and February are also blue because those months have passed for this portion of the quarter. So that's where you would enter your actual amount spent, and then the remaining non-shaded months for the remaining quarters, that's where you would put your projections. And everything should total out to your COSA budget. And again, if there's any variances, it will show up here where we have have it formulated to calculate that, and you would just need to enter in any variance explanations if there are any variances in the form. And again, when you click next to it, there's the projections instructions in case you forget what goes in any of the forms, and it has these text boxes to direct you as to what needs to be entered in the form. And then that last tab is that questions tab we spoke about. And again, these are some example questions where you just enter in the category of your question, enter in your question, and then any comments or suggestions you may have. Okay. All right, so that was the advanced payment request demonstration. And now just some items to remember. For the advanced payment request template, it needs to be submitted as a PDF file and signed. Your spending projections template, that needs to be submitted as an Excel file. And then again, the date of submission is the 20th of the beginning of each quarter. And the how to upload and submit documents using Smartsheet, we will go through this. I'll do the demonstration and go through this in the second presentation because it is the same. So I will do that then. And I'll do the Smartsheet demonstration then as well. So for the advanced payment request, are there any questions or comments regarding this template? Katie, did anything come up in the chat?
Yes, ma'am, and I am trying to unmute, so can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So Leah from Girls Inc. said, do all advance payment requests need to equal 1/8 of the total contract?
Yes and no. Yes, because that's what the contract says as far as the 12.5% for each quarter. However, as the attestation reads and a section in the contract as well, the advance payment request is contingent upon the successful review of the prior quarter, and then contingent upon the projected spend and what's actually being spent. and performance, the advance may be adjusted either up or down, as I showed in that last section. That's for COSA only to put adjustments. So it will depend on how what your spending pattern is, but typically it should be the 12.5%. And if you're spending the 12.5%, then it'll continue to stay at that.
Okay. We also have a question from Bonnie. It said, since we're in April and we're supposed to turn our advance payment request in on 3/20, how would we get our payment if we just received our contract? Would we have to wait till the next due date?
No, we understand that the contracts and things are kind of getting started a little late. So we understand that. You just still submit it as soon as you're able.
Let's see. There were questions asking where to find the advance payment request form and where to find the invoice template. Thank you, Denise, for posting the link to the advance payment form. As for the invoices, where would they be able to find that?
Okay, that I'm going to go over in the next presentation, but I can show you, it's in that same area of the resources, partner resources on the website. So make it bigger. So where it says contract forms, instead of clicking on workshop, you click on contract forms, and the forms would be listed at the bottom, like here. So you click on contract forms, and then all the forms are here. There's the advanced payment request template, the budget forms, the quarterly review invoice template. So that's where the form is that you would use when you're getting ready to submit your invoices.
Brooke asked, if we haven't received our contract, can we still submit the advance payment request?
Yes, you can still submit.
Robert asked, ours is a construction project. We can spend all of our ARPA award in 1 quarter. Can we request a single advance payment?
That's sorry, this is Rashanda's supervisor. So that contract is probably a little bit unique in relation to all of the other ARPA contracts that we have. So would you mind if we discuss that offline separately with the agency directly?
I'll make a note of that, Omar.
Thank you, Katie.
Saba asked a question, are we supposed to overwrite the projected numbers with the actuals?
If it's blue, yes. Once that month has passed and you have an actual spend, then yes, we want you to put the actual numbers in there.
And then Brooke asked, once you submit the advance payment request, what is the time frame for receiving the funds?
It's all contingent upon when we receive it, and then upon the successful review of the prior quarter, because your next advance is contingent upon your prior quarter's review. So like I said, when things are submitted, if they're submitted a little later, it's going to take a little longer. And then if there are any issues or discrepancies within your prior quarter, as we review those invoices and what was spent against what was advanced, all of that ties into effect. But essentially, we try to get payments out within 30 days.
That's all of the questions in the chat. I do want to give Metro Health a chance to chime in because their advanced payment request system is a little bit different than DHS. And some of the agencies here have Metro Health contracts as well.
Okay.
Valerie or Ashley, did you want to pop on and kind of explain your process?
Good morning, everyone. This is Ashley Stubing from Metro Health, contract manager here. Yes, thank you for the opportunity to jump in. So here at Metro Health, we are not requiring an advanced payment request form specifically. We are actually instead just requesting an invoice. So we are not dictating the template of that invoice. It'll just be a simple invoice that includes your agency's name, the program, an invoice number, an invoice date, and the dollar value of that 12.5% award of your total award, so that 1/8 amount upon execution, and then with your quarterly package each quarter. And that will suffice as that, what we're calling that advanced payment request. So no particular form is required. It's simply just that invoice from your accounting system with those key points, which I did add to the chat, but we will definitely, your coordinators and myself are here to help answer those questions, and we'll walk you through that when your contract is executed as well, as a reminder. But no specific advanced payment request form is required for Metro Health. We will just be asking for that invoice from your system. Otherwise, if there's no other questions, I can hand it back over.
Thanks, Ashley.
Hi, Katie, can you guys hear me? I have my hand raised.
I sure can.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Leah from Girls Inc. Rashonda, thank you. Rashonda, supervisor, thank you. Totally confused. Totally and inexplicably confused and concerned that we started services in March, so we have expenses, but none of our expenses are equal every month. Nothing is, from when we order office supplies for the copy machine to people's hours per month. Even our salary employees, we are 26 pay periods, so they don't even divide equally every month. So I am concerned that we're never going to be able to accurately project what we're going to spend, which means that nothing will ever be exactly correct. So we'll always be under or overspent every single quarter. So that's one concern. The second concern is, I don't know how we're going to catch up. So can we, if it's possible, can we just submit actuals at the end of every quarter? So those are my questions, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Yeah, so I'll chime in right quick. This is Omar, Rashonda's supervisor. We have had that question come up in the past, and the simple answer is yes. If you choose to not receive advances and you just want to bill us quarterly for whatever the expenses you incurred were, that's totally fine. The purpose of the advances is to kind of assist our agencies with, with costs for the current quarter, as opposed to getting reimbursed after the fact. But again, if you choose to submit just the reimbursement piece, we can work with that. What we would ask, though, in addition to doing that, is we would ask you to submit an advance request, and Rashonda would be able to guide you guys, or Rashonda or whoever your fiscal monitor is, would be able to guide you guys a little bit better. But essentially what we would look for is an advance request with a note that just says we're not seeking an advance at this time. Then what that would translate to is we would not advance you any funds. And when we receive your quarterly review paperwork, we would review it all and we would reimburse you whatever the actual expenses we determine to be are. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah. Hi, Omar. Leah. Yeah, and
Hi, Leah.
Rashonda is our fiscal agent. Thanks, Rashonda. That does make sense. I understand the intent of getting the money out to the agencies sooner. But even with a 30-day delay, even if everything was right, I's dotted, T's crossed, and perfect, there still could be up to 30 days to get the money, and we've still already spent it.
Yeah.
So this is just another step of a prediction that adds, in my opinion, a huge, and I mean huge burden, in my opinion, on the agency. And
Yeah,
I just,
and
so,
we understand that. I mean, every agency is different, every program is different, every agency, every program has different needs. So we totally understand if there are folks out there that this particular process may not be 100% suitable for. So we're definitely, like I said, we're
Okay.
definitely flexible in just paying you guys a reimbursement. That's totally fine. That's not
Right.
a problem for us.
I appreciate it,
Especially
Omar.
especially if y'all are telling us, if you tell us that it's an administrative burden on your agency, which it sounds like it kind of is, then we completely understand those sorts of circumstances.
Excellent. Thank you, Omar. Nice to meet you via WebEx.
Nice to meet you too.
We have another question from Saba. It says, who do we reach out to if we also want to submit actual expenses at the end of the quarter?
You would reach out to Rashonda, or what I should say, it's because she's handling the bulk of the agencies. You would reach out to whoever your fiscal monitor is. It might be Rashonda, it might be Joseph, it might be somebody else, but you would connect with your fiscal monitor.
Okay, that's all the questions that I see right now.
Okay, I will quickly jump right into the next presentation, the Quarterly Review Invoice Template Instructions for ARPA DAs. So for this agenda, again, an introduction, some definitions, explanations, a process overview, reminder of where the partner resource webpage is, smart sheet access, and I can do the demonstration that I skipped on that previous presentation, and then the quarterly review invoice template instructions. And then again, the timeline visual, and then a demonstration on how to complete that quarterly review invoice, some items to remember, and then also how to upload your documents into Smart Sheets, which I passed on the last presentation, and give that demonstration as well. So the introduction, the purpose of this presentation is to provide instructions on for the quarterly review invoices. Detailed instructions will be given, visual examples provided, and there will be an opportunity for questions. So again, with this presentation, if you could hold all questions until the end of the training. And also this presentation will be recorded and available for future reference. Some definitions. The quarterly review invoice template is the template that the agencies will use to submit their invoices for review. Invoice indexing. This is the process of labeling your invoices and your GL, your general ledger support, that helps to easily identify your expenditures. Smart Sheet, again, is the software that we'll be using, the agencies will be using to submit documents to COSA. And again, it's important to fill out this quarterly review invoice completely and properly to avoid rejections and any delays with future payments. Explanations. The quarterly review invoice. Should be submitted no later than the 20th of the beginning of the quarter, shown in the timeline that we saw in the previous presentation. And again, the purpose of submitting the quarterly review invoice is for DHS to reconcile and review and verify that the items on the invoice were appropriately paid using funds from the advance payment requests dispersed. Okay, still I can spell it. Give me one quick second. All right. Okay, that's just a quick picture of what the invoice indexing would look like when you submit your invoices, so we can quickly identify the amounts we're verifying. Just skip through. There's the resource page again where the workshops and the forums are. Okay, the Smart Sheet access, we saw this in the previous presentation. And so now the quarterly review invoice template, how to complete this. So again, the first thing you want to do is access the template, which is going through that partners resource webpage and going to contract forms and then down to the forms for ARPA contracts only. Once you open it, this is pretty much what it would look like. There'll be two tabs, the quarterly review invoice template tab, and then also the extended salary page. And this is what the header looks like for the top of the quarterly review invoice template. Now, how to complete it, this is around the third step. So you would, at the top, choose your agency program and name from the drop-down menu. And then the agency and program fields will auto-populate once you do that. Again, just as in the advance payment request, we need you to complete your address. And if it's different, contact your contract monitor who will put you in touch with the vendor maintenance support team so we can get that corrected in our systems. And then around the sixth step, the invoice period, again, you need to choose that from the drop-down menu. And the invoice date, invoice number, the PO, and the program ID fields, these will all auto-populate. And then after that, you start into your line item expenses for your invoice, and you would just enter in the data here. And then as you can see, the red box over to the right, that's where you would do the indexing. Again, this is the next section regarding contractual services. And again, you would fill out any data here if it's applicable, and there's the index column on the side. Around the 10th step, you'll be at the transportation and fees. If that's applicable to you, you'd fill out this section. And again, you see the indexing column on the side. Here's the commodities section. If it's applicable to you, you fill out the amounts for this area, and again, place your indexing on the side. Same for fixed charges. And then this next section, the capital outlay, again, there's the area where you put your the dollar amounts and then the indexing. And then the totals at the end of it, around step 14, these will auto-populate. And then the certifications, this is where we need you to enter in your name, your title and your date, and then also sign. And then the remaining section is for COSA use only. Again, here's the timeline for the immigration, which started, their first quarter was November. And we ask that when you submit, if you haven't already, when you submit your advance payment request, as the 20th has already passed, if you could please submit your advance payment request for quarter 1 and quarter 2 separately. We appreciate that. And then for non-immigration, there's your same timeline. Again, we're still in your first quarter, which started last month. Okay, now here's the demonstration on the quarterly review invoice, how to complete this. So again, I can go back to the website in the partners and agency resources section to the contract forms and scrolling down to the forms for ARPA. And now we want to choose the quarterly review invoice template. And again, just as with the advance payment request, you want to download this file and open it so you can save it and then submit it later. Okay, And so like in the presentation, let me enable. So here's the top section. Squeeze that in so you can see the whole thing. Here's the top section of that quarterly review invoice template, the first tab. And so here's the drop down where you would choose your agency and program. And so whatever you choose, it will auto populate. Then you choose the period. And when you click here, what I was noticing on some of the ones who have submitted, you were choosing supplemental invoice. That's what this 1SP stands for, and that's not correct for your quarterly review. So when you click on this drop down, you need to scroll up to the top and pick your quarter for your quarterly review invoice. And so I'm going to pick Q1 for this example. Again, this PO will automatically populate, and for now, it may show, it may be blank. Let me see. Let me change this because I want to show how the quarters come about. Let me scroll up and just pick like an immigration agency. Okay. And as you can see, the invoice name, when I picked Q1 and it's an immigration agency, the invoice name is Q1 REC 22, and that's for because the first quarter started in November 2022. If I were to pick a non-immigration agency and I choose the first quarter, then as you can see over here, Q1 REC is 2023 because the first quarter for the non-immigration delegate agency started in March of 2023. And at any rate, you would proceed to fill in your information. And again, there's the indexing column. And then your contractual services, if you had any, you enter in your amounts, and then there's the indexing column. Again, where you'd enter in for the contract information in the indexing column. And then for transportation and fees, if you had any, entering in the information in the indexing column. Travel and commodities, and again, your indexing column. Fixed charges, if there were any, enter in your amounts, and then your indexing column. Capital outlays, enter in your amounts in your indexing column. And then the invoice totals that will be automatically calculated. And again, here's the certifications area where you sign, print and sign your name, date, and your title. And then this bottom area is for COSA use only. This extended salary page, this is where you would break out the information in detail and enter in the position, the employee name, program amount, if there's an admin amount, and then what the total is. And again, this is connected to your first tab, so all your information pulls over and it's all totaled at the bottom. And let me just scroll back here to show you where this would be. So in the first half, the salaries, this actually is formulated to pull from this first tab. So whatever you're typing in here, the position, and if this is program, put $10 there. It calculates and it does the total, and then it pulls it into here because we're doing salaries. So that salaries per program pulls in there. And this is all for the top. It's just going to pull in whatever you put in for salaries per program. also for admin. So if we were to go up here, let's say we have lines for admin. To there. Okay, we're gonna do, oh, this is gonna be admin. And it all comes over into the salary total. All sums at the bottom, the initial $10 for program we put, and then the 200 for the admin, and then there's the total. And again, this all pulls to the front on the salaries line. So there's the $10 under program and the 200 under admin. And then there's the total altogether. And then here's the column for your indexing. Again, just like with the advance payment request, if you're filling out this quarterly review invoice template and you have questions or forgets something, there's these text boxes on the form telling you what goes into each section and if it's auto-populated or not. Same thing for the extended salary page. Instructions telling you what's auto-populated and text boxes of what you need to fill out for each section. Okay, so that was the quarterly review invoice demonstration. Some items to remember: the quarterly review invoice template needs to be submitted as a signed PDF file and as an Excel file. Your general ledger and supporting documents, that needs to be submitted as a PDF file. And again, the date of submission is the 20th of the beginning of each quarter. Now, how to upload and submit these documents using Smartsheet. This was a demonstration that I skipped in the first presentation. So here it is. Once you click onto the dashboard that you choose, and for us, this is going to be finance dashboard. That's the first thing you'll see. And then as you scroll down to the invoice and budget revision section, which is again the same area where you would be submitting your advanced payment request template, and also where you would be submitting your quarterly review invoice template, all in the same area. And these acronyms, when you see them in the primary column, BR is for budget revision, Q1 ADV stands for quarter one advance, SP stands for the supplemental invoices, and REC are the quarterly review invoices. Okay, you won't be able to submit documents until at least 5 days before the due date. So if it's due on the 20th, then around the 15th, the line should open up where you could submit and attach documents and send in the information. Okay, so when you're in this area of the dashboard, you pick which line you want to make your submission on. When you click that line, it'll typically light up a highlight blue to show you where you are, so you won't be confused and you know what line you're clicked on. And when you click that line, this details window will open up over here to the right, and it'll open up under the data tab. And while you're in this data tab, you'll need to validate this information. So the validation, as you can see on the data tab, if you look over to the right, up to the left of the actual dashboard, you'll see the validation area, and you just need to make sure you see where that blue highlight is. That's showing that we're clicked on the first line, and what we're validating is the test agency name and program, and this is test agency test program, so that's the same. You validate that. Then the invoice and month, right here, what we're validating, this is coming from the primary column where those acronyms were. So we are on the first line, which is BRB1, and that's what's displayed here in the invoice and month. Now in the invoice and year, this should be the invoice year that you are submitting, either your quarterly review invoice or your advance payment request. And this all helps to ensure that you are on the right line when you validate all of that. Then the next tab is the attachments tab, still on the details window. We'll move from the data tab to the attachments tab. This is where you start attaching either your quarterly review invoice or your advance payment request or whatever documents you're trying to submit to COSA. And the naming convention for your documents that you attach is, for this one in particular, it's the quarterly review invoice. If it was your advance payment request, that's what you would put there, advance payment request. Your agency name, what the quarter is, if it's quarter 1, 2, or 3, and then the acronym. So for the quarterly review invoice, remember the acronyms were REC. If this were an advance payment request, this acronym would be ADV. And I'll just scoot back to show again, BR budget request, ADV advance, and SP supplemental, and REC the quarterly review invoice. Okay. And so this is where you do your attachments. After you do your attachments, then you want to go back to the data tab, which is right next to the attachments tab, still in the details window, and you want to enter in the amount of your invoice, your total amount of your invoice, and then if where it asks you, has the invoice template been completed and attached? This is that quarterly review invoice. You can say yes if you just got off the attachments tab. In the general ledger and any applicable support, if that's attached over here where it's asking that question, you can say yes. However, when you get here to the invoice submitted by agency, do not check this box until you're absolutely sure that you verified and checked everything and all of your attachments are attached. Because once you click this box and save and submit, then the line will lock. And if you later remember that you need to make a change on a form or to attach an additional support, you will not be able to do it because it'll be locked. So what you'll need to do is reach out to your contract monitor, ask them to reject what you just submitted, and then the rejections run overnight. So you would have to wait until the following day to resubmit. But once you do submit, you will receive an invoice, an email confirming, an email confirmation saying that you've submitted documents to DHS. Now, if you have to have a resubmission or a revision, like I mentioned, once you check that box and submit, you won't be able to resubmit until you reach out to your contract monitor, ask them to do the rejection so the line will open back up. But remember, the rejections run overnight, so you have to wait till the following day before you do your resubmission. And when you resubmit, the naming convention is the same with the exception of we ask that you would put a tag on the end of the file name and write in revised and what the date is, so we know that that's a resubmission or a revision of some type. And again, when you submit your revisions or your resubmission, you will receive you'll receive the rejection notice if you've reached out to your contract monitor and asked them to reject. And then once you resubmit, you'll also receive a notice that your items have been submitted. Document status. After you submit your items, you scroll all the way over to the right. There's it says invoice status. This is the status for your advance payment request or your quarterly review invoice. If the status says complete, that means it's been approved by DHS and it's with AP for processing. If it says pending, like in our example here with the red square, then that means you've submitted it to DHS, but it's pending review and approval. If this area is blank, that means that either nothing was submitted or you submitted something, but DHS did not receive it. And so at that point, you want to go through the process again or reach out to your contract monitor for assistance. Okay, so now here's the demonstration for submitting your documents into Smartsheet. So now go back to this area where I was earlier, and I'll just scroll back up. So when you get to your dashboard, this is what you see. And then you scroll all the way down to the invoice and budget revision section. And this is where you will come if you are submitting an advance payment request or a quarterly review invoice. This is where you would come. And so what we have available in our test section is, let's say we're doing a budget revision. And as you can see, I'm hovering over this line where the budget revision is number 3. This is our 3rd budget revision we want to do. And you see that it's highlighted in blue. So that lets me know I'm on that line. And when you click it, as we saw in the presentation, the details window opens and it opens up to the data tab. I don't know why I'm getting this message. Let me close that and I'll choose another line, BR4. Okay, for some reason the network is not letting me do anything. But at any rate, when we click here on the data, I'll just go back to the presentation. When we clicked over on the data, this is typically what would pull up. And then when we're ready to do our attachments, we click here on the attachments tab. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe I'll refresh. Maybe this room. We'll see. Okay, let me scroll back down. Okay, there we go. And so the blue highlights there. So I'm on the line with BR3, the validation, the test agency, and test program agency. There's the validation column, test agency, test program agency. The invoice month is that acronym BR3 from the primary column, and that's correct. The invoice year 2024. So here's where I want to stop and click on attachments. All right, now I have no attachments, so I'm going to go to where I save my files and I'll attach my PDF that I signed. Now I want to attach my Excel template. Click that and open. And now it should show that I have 2 attachments. I see my attachments are there. So now I'm going to go back to data and finish filling this out. So now for the original amount, we'll say this is $50,000. And for templates complete and attached, whether it's your advance payment request or your quarterly review invoice, if you attached it, then you can say yes. Any support, if you attached it, you can say yes. And now, before I click the check and submit it by agency, I remember that there's another attachment I want to attach. So before I get locked out, I'm going to click back over on tabs, save my information that I entered. Okay, so now go into attachments and I will go get that 3rd attachment that I forgot, my projections. Okay, now I've got my 3 attachments. Go back to data. Everything is the same what I validated when I saved. There's my 50,000. Yes, the template. Yes to the ledger. So now I'm confident that everything is correct. I've attached all that I needed. So now I'll go ahead and check this. And now I'll go ahead and save. Okay, so now I'm gonna close this window, and there's my line where I was at budget revision number 3 and my 50,000. My yes that I attached everything in my GL, and that my check mark that I submitted it's for the correct line. So let me see my status. My status says nothing. Well, before I assume that nothing happened, I'm going to refresh my smart sheet. Okay, so I'm back in the dashboard, scroll back down to the invoice and budget revisions. Okay, there's my line again for the 50,000. Everything looks the same, is checked off. 50,000, okay. And there's my status pending, which means I've submitted everything successfully, and now I'm just waiting for DHS to review and approve. Okay. Right. Okay. So are there any questions or comments?
Hi, Rashonda, there are just a few questions.
Okay.
What gets entered in the indexing column?
Okay. So the indexing, let's go back. The indexing is just basically a lettering. So here in this screenshot, the top part where it says personnel services, that's the quarterly review invoice. And so they've entered in the program amounts, and there's the total expenditure. This bottom screenshot is a screenshot of a journal ledger. And so you wanted the indexes, you just want us to be able to easily identify that. So this first line for salaries with the account number 5101010, that's A on the invoice. And then when I look down here at the bottom on the general ledger, there's A showing me that that's the $1,200 that's being charged on the account that's showing up on the GL. Same with the next line, the FICA for this salaries expense for the program is $91.80, and they've indexed it with the letter B. And so then when I come to the general ledger, or when the accountants would come to the general ledger to review this, they look for letter B, and there's the $91.80 on the general ledger that corresponds to the quarterly review invoice. So we can easily identify the charges that the delegate agency is presenting that they've paid with the advance.
Okay. And the next question is, what about budget adjustments? Is it the same form as the non-ARPA delegate agencies?
The budget adjustments, it's a different form. It's similar to the budget form. It's a little different, but we will have that out there as well. But yes, it's slightly different.
It's currently being worked on. The template for the budget adjustments is being worked on by Rashonda and another team that we have in-house. We're not sure when it's actually going to be released, but I can say that it will look very similar to the existing delegate agency budget revision template. But when it is out there, everybody will be notified by somebody. So hopefully it'll come out relatively soon.
Okay, that's all the questions that I see in the chat. If anyone has any questions and you'd like to unmute yourself, please feel free.
Hi, it's Leah again.
Hello.
Hi, Leah.
Hi. So the budget adjustment. So, okay, not out there. Good. I wasn't like losing my mind when I was looking for it. Excellent. So how far can we, like, I hate to say this, play catch up? So if we had an expenditure in April, right? but we need to submit a budget adjustment to see if it's covered. And that doesn't all happen until, I don't know, June, by the time everything is said and done and you know, approved. Can we add that April expense to either to an advance form or to an expenditure form from July or August? Like how is this cumulative? I mean, when I, does that make sense? Like when I bill monthly, I know exactly what monthly expenses are in.
That's the purpose of the supplemental invoices is to
Okay.
capture the sorts of expenses that you're describing.
I've never done a supplemental, so that'll be new for me.
And
Excellent.
so-
All right.
Supplemental invoices are intended to capture, basically, you're not limited to a particular month or a particular quarter on supplementals. You can recapture past expenses on a supplemental invoice from more than one quarter if you wanted to.
Excellent. I will educate myself on that. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Where can we find this presentation or the video?
That would be on the agency and partner resource webpage. Click back to it. So when you click on workshops and go to the fiscal presentations, this is where you'll find a PDF of the PowerPoint presentation and also a recording of the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions? Comments?
I
Katie,
don't see any other questions.
okay.
So thank you everyone for attending. If you think of questions after this meeting, I know sometimes questions appear to me in the middle of the night and I wake up in a panic because all of a sudden I remember something I should have asked. If you think of anything, feel free to reach out to us. Rashonda's email is right there, rashonda.anderson@sanantonio.gov, or you can email your contract monitor or contract coordinator, or you can email me if you'd like to. We will be sure to get back with you with an answer. We are going to try to get these presentations posted as quickly as possible to our website, along with the questions. I've been keeping track of the questions that were asked. We'll send it around our divisions, write in the answers, and then make sure that that's available to you as well. If you need anything else, feel free to reach out. We'll see y'all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.